Somewhere in the vast desert of Mongolia, work is being done to find oil. It is soon discovered that there is no oil there, and the oil company shuts down one of its wells, laying off all the personnel. Captain Frank Towns has flown there to transport the workers back on an old plane. The work team leader, Kelly Johnson, protests against the shutdown, but her boss Ian and Frank ignore her indignation. Furthermore, upon returning to Beijing, she will face dismissal for giving the wrong coordinates and thus wasting the company's valuable resources searching for non-existent oil. The team shuts down their equipment and boards the plane. A young man, John, puts on a cap and makes a wish for good luck. There is a disagreement among the common workers regarding the seats. Ian does not want to sit next to the ordinary worker, so he suggests that Alex Rodney move to the back with the other workers. At the last minute before departure, a strange man named Elliot appears at the departure site. Not refusing a ride, Captain Frank agrees to take him out of the desert. Then he and his co-pilot AJ take off with the plane. The passengers chat happily among themselves, sharing photos of their loved ones waiting for them at home. Suddenly, a massive sandstorm sweeps across the desert. AJ anxiously awaits orders from his partner. Frank has no intention of wasting time, as he does not know how long it will take. The captain gives the order to gain altitude to fly above the storm. The passengers are frightened by the sudden ascent, but AJ assures them that everything is under control. However, the scared Elliot appears in the cockpit and says that the plane is too overloaded to fly over the sandstorm. Nevertheless, the overly confident captain ignores his warnings and rudely tells the passenger to leave. As a result, Frank fails to calculate his own abilities and the aircraft's capabilities, leading to disastrous consequences when he encounters the storm. The engines start to fail, and one explodes, causing the pilots to lose complete control of the plane. During the turbulence, AJ collides the hull of the aircraft with a small cliff, and the tail of the plane breaks off. Part of the cargo, along with one of the workers checking that everything was secure, flies out at breakneck speed and fatally crashes to the ground. They make an emergency landing in the middle of the Mongolian desert, causing severe damage to the plane, and most of its components are shattered upon impact. The crew and most of the passengers manage to survive the crash. Frank informs the workers that the radio is broken and communication with the outside world is lost. However, he reassures those present by saying they will be searched for soon since the plane did not arrive at the scheduled refueling point. Meanwhile, the sandstorm completely covers the flying machine. The crew then has no choice but to wait for it to pass before attempting to escape. Ian tries to call someone on the phone, which makes John laugh. The boss irritably blames the boy for the plane crash and says he jinxed them with his ritual. After a while, the storm passes, and the team exits the plane. In honor of the 2 workers who died in the incident, improvised crosses are placed in the desert. The team asks Captain Towns to give a farewell speech, but he cannot find the words because he did not know the men. Elliot is the only one present who realizes that the deaths could have been avoided and is not afraid to sarcastically insinuate this to the pilots. AJ asks Kelly who this strange guy is. The woman says he appeared out of nowhere a week ago and introduced himself as a traveler. He couldn't get out of the desert on his own, so he joined the work team. After recovering from the initial shock, the passengers take inventory. According to Frank's calculations, they should have enough water supplies for a month if they consume half a liter per person per day and conserve their strength and energy. Fortunately, all the food supplies are canned, which will keep the team alive for a while until help arrives. The bad news, however, is that the plane went off course during the crash, and the nearest settlement is several hundred kilometers away. An athletic worker named Jeremy says he can get there on foot, but Raby warns him that he does not know the peculiarities of the Gobi Desert, noting that July is the hottest month. Jeremy does not give up and says he will walk during the cool of the night, but Raby crushes his idea, saying that the dunes are constantly moving, so he will just walk in circles and eventually get lost in the sands. When night falls, a sandstorm begins. Young John cannot sleep because of the guilt, genuinely feeling responsible for jinxing the team. He goes out to relieve himself, and a strong wind instantly carries him to an unknown destination. The frantic young man wanders back and forth, lost and panicking, trying to find his way back to the plane, but unfortunately, he is swallowed by the treacherous desert. The next morning, the team wakes up and discovers that John is missing. Finding no trace of him, they are horrified to realize that the boy was taken by the desert. His partner, Alex, wants to go in search of his friend, but Kelly and Frank prevent him from undertaking such a risky endeavor. This event makes the passengers fully aware of the dangerous situation they are in. Kelly learns from the captain that the chances of being found by rescuers are minimal. The woman offers to try to find a way out of the desert, but Frank is adamant and says they are in the middle of a desert, without a radio, with very little water and even less food. If they try to leave on foot, they will last about 2 days. Kelly tries to influence the captain, saying that the whole team is counting on him, but he does not want to take responsibility and rudely dismisses her. Meanwhile, the surviving passengers begin to speculate that no one will come to rescue them. Ian is confident that the corporation will rescue them, but Kelly reminds him that they fired dozens of people without remorse after discovering there was no oil in the desert. Considering the profitability of the rescue operation, it is unlikely that the large company will agree to waste its budget on finding a few common workers. Panic sets in among the crew. Ian and another passenger plan to leave, taking a gallon of water with them. The other survivors attack them, trying to stop them, which results in the gallon bursting and the precious liquid spilling onto the sand. Suddenly, Elliot starts whistling, drawing attention to himself. He tells the group that he knows how to get out of the desert. All this time, he has been carefully studying the construction of the plane and concluded that it can be rebuilt. He suggests that the assembled team build a new aircraft with salvaged spare parts. The crew is skeptical, thinking this is not feasible, but Elliot reveals a truth about himself that makes the passengers change their minds. He designed the aircraft. The passengers renew their hopes, but Frank convinces them that they will not survive working under the scorching sun with minimal provisions. He tells everyone to do nothing and conserve their strength until help arrives. Not everyone agrees with this plan, and by dawn, it becomes known that James decided to leave. Kelly plans to go after him, but not wanting to lose another colleague, the captain stops her and reluctantly goes in search of the missing man. Wandering for long hours through the vast desert, he finally arrives at a quarry where he discovers the wreckage of the plane. Among them, he finds the mutilated body of a man, next to which Frank finds bullet casings. James suddenly appears behind the captain and says the victim is one of the passengers who fell from the plane. He must have had an expensive watch on his wrist, which James lost to him in a poker game. Apparently, smugglers visited the crash site and looted it. The men have an honest conversation, and James admits he does not believe in salvation. However, he believes they have a chance to build a plane, they just need to try. But the captain does not want to risk giving people false hope. James says the crew needs something to believe in to keep from going crazy. He says his family is waiting for him at home and he is willing to cross the desert alone to see them again. Frank asks him to return to the group and promises to start building the plane. Initially, the worker does not believe in the captain's sincerity, but then decides to make a bet with him. Meanwhile, everyone at the camp is immersed in sad thoughts, already without hope of seeing the men again. Suddenly, Jeremy notices two silhouettes in the distance, and the passengers joyfully run toward them. Frank announces that they are going to build the plane and asks Elliot to develop a new design. He also tells each passenger to actively participate in the construction process, to which everyone agrees unanimously. At night, the team begins to work, lighting fires and barrels to illuminate everything around. Everyone is full of energy and successfully dismantles the plane. By morning, everyone is very tired and realizes they have drunk twice the amount of water. Construction work is carried out only at night to avoid the heat and save water. On one of those nights, a spark from a bonfire accidentally hits a barrel of gasoline, causing a powerful explosion. This leaves them almost without fuel, and Frank informs them that they will have to work during the day, using more water. The group is not happy with the idea, but productivity in the daylight improves, and construction speeds up. Elliot gives the group the challenging task of joining the two parts of the airplane wing. He entrusts this task to Sammy, who used to work as a cook. Sammy climbs onto the wing to secure the desired piece. During the process, an accident occurs, and the other part of the wing comes loose from its fasteners. The team freezes in horror, thinking the cook is dead, but within seconds Sammy appears smiling, having successfully completed the task. Throughout the construction, the team becomes even more united and finds reasons to rejoice, even in the harsh desert conditions. Only Frank and Elliot continue to argue about deadlines. At night, it starts to rain in the desert, initially pleasing the workers tired of the heat, but the first thunder makes the captain tremble with the imminent danger. The plane is still not grounded, and there is residual fuel inside. If lightning strikes it, there will be an explosion, and they will be stranded in the desert forever. He and two workers pull a roll of metal cable and quickly bury it in the sand. The team takes refuge safely, while the unlucky Elliot cannot get off the plane wing in time. Frank saves the airplane designer at the last minute, jumping to the ground with him. Thanks to the grounding, the plane does not explode. During the next day's work, the team names the new plane Phoenix, symbolizing rebirth from the ashes. Later, Jeremy urgently summons everyone and reports that someone is stealing water. He has been measuring the supplies for days and realizes they are running out very quickly. Elliot admits he is the one drinking the water, justifying his actions by working at night while the others sleep peacefully. Frank attacks the designer, but he reminds them they need his help to finish the plane and get out of the desert. After a hard day's work, Kelly moves away from the team to rest. Suddenly, she hears suspicious noises and discovers a human camp nearby. Kelly immediately informs the team, and Frank and his two workers decide to conduct a reconnaissance mission. After investigating, they discover that some smugglers have set up camp. The men decide to negotiate with them for help. Elliot tries to dissuade them from the endeavor, but once again, his words are ignored. The boss Ian, Jeremy, and Alex head towards the camp, while Frank follows closely behind with a gun. Ian, in broken foreign dialect, tries to explain to the smugglers the purpose of their arrival but does not understand a word of their response. Meanwhile, James follows Frank and shouts upon noticing his watch on one of the smugglers' wrists. The negotiating bandit pulls his weapon and fires. Enraged, Frank immediately shoots the smugglers, but one manages to escape. Alex, wounded, is brought back to the camp, but Kelly, crying, says he cannot be saved. Soon the man dies, and the team buries him next to the others. While inspecting the enemy camp, one of the surviving smugglers grabs Kelly's leg. He is brought to the plane, and the team begins to discuss what to do with him. Elliot steps out of the group and solves the problem, eliminating the bandit with a shot to the head. A new argument arises between him and the captain. The designer accuses Frank of making a series of bad decisions and reminds him that his actions caused the plane crash. Now, the confrontation with the smugglers resulted in the loss of a man and interrupted the work schedule. Frank cannot take it anymore and silences his opponent by force. Work on the plane is interrupted, and Elliot tells the team he has lost interest due to the disrespectful treatment he received. He forces everyone to admit that he is the leader of the group. After that, work resumes, and Elliot distributes instructions to everyone. Throughout, the smugglers watch from a distance, waiting for the team to tire and lower their guard. After some time, Elliot announces to everyone that the plane is completely ready to fly. The joyful workers start packing their things and preparing for the flight. The captain wants to get a map of the area from Elliot's backpack but accidentally finds a brochure from the company he works for. Then, it is discovered that the man never built real planes, only designed small aircraft models. This news throws the team into a panic as they have spent many resources building a false design. However, Elliot desperately tries to convince everyone that large planes are built on the same principle and that the Phoenix can fly. His words do not convince the furious workers, and they all attack the man with accusations. Exhausted, Ian grabs a revolver and intends to shoot the lying designer, as their food and water supplies are running out because of him, and now there is no chance of salvation. Frank manages to stop his boss at the last moment and takes the gun from his hands. Suddenly, a violent sandstorm arises in the desert, interrupting the cruise fight. The wind starts to lift the plane's fuselage, clearly demonstrating to those present that it can take off. The crew hides from the storm and the fuselage, miraculously surviving the harsh weather. After the storm, the group finds the plane half buried in the sand and loses hope again. However, Frank gives an inspiring speech and tells the team to dig out the plane. They have come too far and cannot give up before returning home. Moments later, everyone in the group, now motivated to get out of the situation, straps ropes to their shoulders connected to the plane, then pull it out of the sand to a flat spot. Before departure, Frank and Elliot finally shake hands. The crew wishes the captain good luck and waits. He only has 5 attempts to start the engine manually. The first attempts fail, and the propeller stops spinning immediately after starting. So, Frank decides to use one of the bullets to clean the plane's engine. Elliot warns him that there are only 2 bullets left, but this time the captain understands the risks. The passengers decide to trust him again. He starts the engine and fuels it to burn. Flames shoot out of the propeller several times, but in the end, the plan works. On the 5th attempt, Frank manages to start the plane, which excites the crew. The survivors board, and the plane starts to move, but then the armed smugglers appear on the horizon on horseback. They charge directly at the group and damage the steering wheel with a shot. Frank loses control and asks Elliot to put the steering wheel back in place. The designer, dodging bullets, crawls through the plane and puts the rudder back in the correct position. The moment of truth arrives, the plane moves at full speed towards a cliff, over which it plunges. The smugglers stop, thinking the plane will crash. However, contrary to their expectations, the plane begins to gain altitude and ascends into the sky against the beautiful sunset. The crew rejoices and congratulates each other. This is how the incredible rescue story ends, with the surviving passengers of the Phoenix successfully returning to their families.